Thank you for giving all the love and support to my channel. Please subscribe to it for more such interesting health related talks. Today, let's try to win over our weight issues. If losing weight was just about eating less and moving more, then we wouldn't be having a global epidemic of obesity today. So, let's understand what really is going on. Now, before I start, just a fun question for you. Suppose your jeans had a social media account. Will it be posting today, feeling a little tight? Hashtag bloated but blessed? Forget it. Let's be real. So many times we all have stepped on our weighing scale and thought, oh my god, is the weighing scale broken? Am I really that heavy? Only to realize that the weighing scale is perfectly normal. And yes, you are weighing that much. So today we are going to tackle the heavyweight topic of obesity. Not in a judgmental or scary way, but in an empathetic and empowering way. Why do you think our waistlines are increasing whereas our lunch breaks are shrinking? Why is it so hard to lose weight even after trying everything? And one more thing to ponder. Did cavemen have belly fat? No, they did not. And definitely not because of the cult fit or CrossFit gyms. So, grab your coffee or your smoothie or any guilt free snack of yours because now we are going to explore the real science, the myth, and the magic behind weight management. And of course, reclaiming your health. Now, let's understand what obesity really means. Why are we getting fatter? And why do we need to at all talk about it? Firstly, we need to understand something very important, and that is fat is essential in our body. What does fat do? Fat helps in insulation, fat helps in protection of our visceral organs, fat is used to store vitamins, fat is used to make hormones, and females need more fat than men because the fat is needed for the female to go through a healthy pregnancy. So, yes, fat is necessary. The problem happens when the fat becomes excessive and creates a health risk. So, what is the definition of obesity? Obesity is not just about looking a certain way, it is a chronic disease. And WHO defines obesity as excessive and abnormal accumulation of fat in our body, which is creating a health risk. Clinically, obesity is considered as anybody having a BMI of more than 30. But that's just one way of looking at it. There are other ways of looking at obesity too, like the waist circumference, the body fat percentage, the distribution of fat, and most importantly, the way our body is reacting to that fat. Location of fat is important because abdominal obesity creates a higher health risk than an overall subcutaneous obesity. A Harvard study in 2022 showed that abdominal obesity is a better predictor for heart diseases compared to overall BMI. Body fat percentage is also another important marker for our health. Body fat percentage depends on many things like age, gender, your race, and your physical activity. Anything between 14 to 24 is considered as normal body fat percentage, and anything above 25 is considered as a high risk for chronic diseases like heart diseases, diabetes, stroke, etc. Okay, so now we know that obesity is a problem. We know what is obesity, but is it really a major public health problem? Do we really need to talk about it? What do you think is the magnitude of the problem? As per WHO, globally, 1 in 8 people are overweight or obese. So you can imagine with the population of the world, how many people are overweight and obese. But the scary part is, in the last only 30 to 35 years, the prevalence of obesity has doubled in adults and quadrupled in children or adolescents. WHO statistics is showing in 2022, 890 million people were living with obesity. So yes, obesity is considered as one of the biggest public health problem in world today. And yes, India is not far behind. In the National Family Health Survey 2019 to 2021, it has been showed that 24% of adult females and 23% of adult men are obese. So you can imagine one fourth of our population is obese. And of course, urban areas have higher obesity rate than rural areas. A study in 2022 in Lancet showed that 12.5 million children in our country are grossly obese. And this was up from 0.4% in 1990. So you can imagine the exponential rise in obesity. So yes, in India also obesity is a major public health problem. And not only that, with this exponential rise of obesity, we are also finding exponential rise in other chronic diseases like diabetes, heart diseases, hypertension, stroke, some cancers, and even mental health issues. So now let's understand why we are getting fatter. So now we know that obesity is a problem. It is a major public health problem. But then let's understand why are we getting fatter? Let's rewind a few centuries. Our ancestors had to walk for miles to get food. They had to lift heavy objects like boulders, trees, and fight off animals either for food or for survival. And the availability of food was very limited in those days. Now let's fast forward. Let's come to now. What are we doing nowadays? We are sitting for more than 8 hours in a day. We have machines for all our chores, so we don't have much of physical exertion. We hardly have any kind of physical activity. We take our car to go to the gym to walk on the treadmill. Isn't it an irony? And we can get delivered more than 3,000 calories in just 30 minutes. Moreover, the ultra processed food that we are eating nowadays is high in sugar, salt, and fat, and they are scientifically shown as to be addictive. Haven't you seen it for yourself? It is so difficult to stop eating those potato chips until the packet is empty. As nowadays, we also have our social media. Just mindlessly, we are scrolling. We are eating snacks while we are scrolling. And because we are sitting and scrolling, we hardly have any physical activity. So, yes, of course, that also helps us gain weight. And one more very important problem about social media is it portrays only thin people as beautiful and desirable, and fat people as ugly. So it creates a lot of mental stress on overweight and obese people to conform to that idea and try and become thin. All these factors help us to become overweight or obese. This is a real life story. A lady had come to me about a year back for her PCOS, and she said she had gained about 8 or 10 kilos within some 3 or 4 months during her work from home period. And why was that? Because she used to have 5 or 6 tea breaks during the day of her work. And during every tea break, it would come with either some biscuits, some cookies, some samosa, some chakli, some pizza, some burgers, and that equals to about 1000 to 1200 calories extra every day. So obviously you will gain weight. When she realized that, she stopped her snacking, she started going out for walks, and within 3 or 4 months, she reduced all the weight that she had gained. And just about a week or 10 days back, she visited me because she was trying for her pregnancy. Her periods had become normal. So, yes, it's possible. Now, let's see why we are calling obesity a disease and not just a lifestyle choice. It's because we need to understand that obesity is not just about overeating or laziness. There are many other factors which influence obesity, and some of the factors may not be in our hands, like genetics, medical conditions like arthritis, asthma, hypothyroidism, certain drugs like steroids or psychiatric drugs, which are given for other health problems. Socioeconomic status. Poor people eat a lot more of carbohydrates because that is cheaper, and rich people eat a lot more of calories because of the availability. Of course, the environment and the sitting culture. We hardly have any kind of physical activity nowadays. Plus, modernization has given us gadgets for everything. So, we really don't need to move even a finger sometimes. We also have developed unhealthy eating habits due to unhealthy work hours. We work late, we eat late, and because we are working late, we tend to eat fast foods which are high in calorie and salt and sugar and fat and everything. Another very important factor for obesity is sleep deprivation and stress. Both increase our cortisol levels and lead to fat accumulation. Now let us understand the actual biology behind the bulge. Does genetics and family history affect our fat deposition? Yes, it does. Obesity, while it is influenced by lifestyle and environmental factors, it also has a very strong genetic component. Various studies have shown that genes can affect the various aspects of weight regulation, like appetite, metabolism, and energy expenditure. FTO, or the fat mass obesity associated gene, is one of the best studied genes for obesity. FTO is associated with increased hunger, reduced satiety, and increased accumulation of fat. What about hormones? Do they play a role? Yes, they definitely do. Hormonal imbalances can contribute to obesity by affecting our appetite, our metabolism, and our fat distribution. Hormones like leptin, ghrelin, insulin, thyroid, and our sex hormones play a major role in regulating these processes, and imbalance of these hormones can lead to increased appetite, decreased metabolism, and increased fat accumulation. Leptin is a hormone which is produced by our fat cells, and it controls our hunger and satiety. When we eat, leptin is secreted and it tells our brain that we are full, and it gives us satiety so that we stop eating. It also promotes energy expenditure. In obesity, we can see leptin resistance, and the brain does not respond to the leptin's signals, leading to continuous overeating and weight gain. Ghrelin is a hormone that is produced by our stomach, and it stimulates your hunger. In obese people, generally the ghrelin levels are low, but our body is more sensitive to whatever ghrelin levels are. So our hunger increases, we eat more, and obviously we gain more weight. Insulin is a hormone which is produced by our pancreas. And in obesity, we see insulin resistance. That is, our liver and our muscle cells do not respond to the insulin and do not take up the blood sugar, and our blood sugar increases. Because of the insulin resistance, our body does not respond to the insulin properly and we gain weight, especially in the abdominal region. The thyroid hormone is our metabolism hormone. And in hypothyroidism, due to low thyroids, our basal metabolism rate reduces. So we'll use less of energy for our day-to-day activities. Because our energy expenditure reduces, even eating normal amounts can lead to weight gain. Estrogen and androgens, our sex hormones, also play a major role in the fat distribution of our body. The androgens help in muscle development. So, men have lower body fat compared to women, and women have a higher body fat percentage because of the estrogen hormones. The hormonal changes which we see during PCOS or menopause also leads to weight gain. So now you can understand that obesity is not just overeating or laziness. What about chronic stress? Does stress increase obesity? Of course it does. Chronic stress leads to secretion of cortisol, which is the main stress hormone. Cortisol leads to high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and fat accumulation, especially in the abdominal region. Plus, stress can trigger the cravings for high sugar, high calorie, high fat food, which are often considered as comfort food. Stress can also lead to sleep disturbances, irregular eating habits, alcohol consumption, lower physical activity, and all these can then lead to increased weight gain. Chronic stress can also be a risk factor for depression and anxiety, which only complicates the weight management further. And obesity itself can be a stressful state due to social stigma and negative feelings about one's body. This then leads us into a negative cycle of eating more and less physical activity, which further increases our weight gain. What do you think? Does sleep affect our weight? Yes, because sleep affects the secretion of hormones like leptin and ghrelin, which controls our hunger or satiety levels. Because of that, we tend to eat more and obviously we will gain weight. Plus, multiple studies have shown that people who sleep less consume more calories. And also, sleep deprivation, reduces our energy levels, creates a lot of fatigue in us, and we do not get motivated to do physical activity. That again increases our weight. Another very important factor which influences our weight is the social stigma around weight. The society discriminates against obese people. We stereotype them as lazy, having low willpower, no motivation, and that creates a feeling of social isolation in them. Even in the workplace, people who are obese are considered as lazy, demotivated, and incompetent. And in school and colleges, obese children are mercilessly teased. Obese people then start having negative beliefs about themselves, about their body image, leading to low self esteem and severe stress. Can even lead to severe anxiety and depression. Stress then induces unhealthy eating habits, and we tend to eat high sugary, high calorie, high fat food, which are like our comfort food. And obviously, this leads to weight gain. As the weight increases, the person further goes into a negative cycle, and then managing weight seems practically impossible. So now you can see that overweight and obesity is not just about laziness or overeating. There are many factors playing a part, and many of them are totally out of our control. Okay, so now I hope you have understood what is the biology behind the bulge and why it is so difficult sometimes to manage obesity. But of course, the discussion will be incomplete if I do not talk about some of the forgotten or overlooked organs of our body which affect obesity. One very important factor related to obesity is the gut microbiome. Nowadays, a lot is being spoken about the gut microbiome because we have realized that the gut microbiome decides how the energy is taken from the food that we are eating. For example, the gut microbiome can ferment the carbohydrates that we eat or produce short chain fatty acids from the fats that we are eating, which can be used as energy. But again, excessive production of these short chain fatty acids can lead to weight gain. The gut microbiome also affects our lipid metabolism. For example, it can affect the production of bile from our liver, which is necessary for fat digestion and absorption. So, changes in the gut microbiome can lead to excessive fat absorption and obviously deposition in our body. The gut microbiome also plays a very important role in our immune system. And in obesity, due to imbalance of our gut microbiome, it can lead to a condition of chronic inflammation, which can lead to insulin resistance, which can then further lead to weight gain. This then increases our risk for chronic diseases. Many studies have shown that the composition of gut microbiome in a lean person and in an obese person is different. Obese people have a lesser diversity of gut microbiome. Another overlooked organ which plays a critical role in obesity is our liver. It produces bile for fat digestion and it stores fat in the form of triglycerides. Our liver is crucial in regulating the lipids in our bloodstream. Our liver can convert excess of carbohydrates and proteins into fats when the energy needs are low, Conversely, it can break down the stored fats into energy when the energy needs are high. Our liver synthesizes cholesterol, triglycerides, and other fats because they are necessary for many of the vital functions of our body, like formation of hormones and storage of vitamins. Our liver is really important for overall balance of fat in our body. Our liver can also store a certain amount of fat. You must have heard the term fatty liver, but it is not the primary storage fat like our fat cells or adipose tissue. Excessive fat storage in our liver can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and other liver disorders. Our liver's primary function is to detoxify toxins. And when it is exposed to excessive amount of alcohol or processed foods, it can get overwhelmed, leading to fat buildup and damage of the organ. This can potentially lead to cirrhosis. A study in the Journal of Hepatology has shown that if we can reduce 7 to 10% of our body weight, then we can reverse the process of fatty liver. Okay, so now we have understood the biology behind the bulge and why obesity is a chronic disease and not just a lifestyle problem. So let us now understand why we are so worried about obesity. Can it cause harm to us? Can it increase our health risk? Yes, obesity is much more than a waistline issue. It has some major health consequences. Well, obesity is important, but the location of obesity is also equally important because visceral fat is more dangerous than subcutaneous fat. And why is it so? Because visceral fat is metabolically active because it releases a lot of free fatty acids in the bloodstream, which can lead to insulin resistance, which means our liver becomes less sensitive to the insulin, leading to higher blood sugar levels. Visceral fat is also a source of hormones and cytokines, which are collectively called adipokines. And the proximity of the visceral fat around the organs, especially the liver, creates a lot of inflammation in our body. This again leads to insulin resistance, which can lead to conditions like hyperlipidemia, atherogenesis, and clots in the blood vessels. It also increases our risk of diabetes, heart diseases, and strokes. In contrast to this, the subcutaneous fat is less metabolically active and generally serves as storage of fat or helps in insulation of our body from the cold. Obesity actually increases your risk of more than 200 diseases. And to name a few, they are diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, strokes, then PCOS, infertility, sleep apneas, and even some cancers. A WHO report in 2017 showed that obesity was responsible for more than 4 million deaths globally. But the problem is, people often come only after symptoms develop. So let us understand what are the symptoms of obesity. You can have problems in doing physical activity like walking or climbing stairs. You can have fast and uncomfortable breathing, and you can frequently face shortness of breath. You can have acid reflux leading to disturbance in your sleep. You can have excessive sweating with minimal physical activity. You may start to snore, or your snoring can become more frequent or more stronger. You may have generalized body aches and pains. You can have fatigue all the time. You can feel tired all the time. You can have sleep disorders like insomnia. Obesity can affect your self-confidence and you may have low self-esteem. You may get a feeling of social isolation, and depression, anxiety, and mood disturbances can also be associated with obesity. If these symptoms sound familiar to you, then it may be a good idea to talk to your doctor. Understanding obesity and your own situation can help you to explore what are the things you can do to keep your weight off. So now that we understand why obesity is such an important thing from our health point of view, let's see what we can actually do. Start with our diet. It may be a good idea to start with a 80-20 plan. That means 80% of the times your meals should be healthy, containing whole foods, and 20% of the times you may be having a little bit of cheat meals and have some small indulgences. But as I spoke earlier, taking more amount of ultra processed food will change your gut microbiome. And this then changes the gut brain satiety signal, which then creates overeating and weight gain. This then increases your risk of chronic diseases. So be prudent about what is there on your plate. On the other hand, only calorie counting may fail in the long term. Let us understand why. The constant need to count calories can be very stressful and can lead to anxiety issues. This itself can lead to overeating. Again, counting calories can shift the focus from enjoying your food to obsessing over the quantities of food you're eating. This can then develop a negative association with food. This can then lead to eating disorders like restrictive eating or binge eating. Counting calories can again interfere with body's natural hunger and satiety signals. So as I was telling, just counting calories is not enough. We have to see what exactly is on our plate. Ultra high processed food increases the prevalence of metabolic syndrome, which is basically a combination of problems like insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and abdominal obesity. And if we have these, then it increases our chances of getting diabetes and obviously increases our risk of heart diseases. Research has actually shown that increase of 10% of ultra high processed foods in your diet will increase your risk of diabetes by nearly 40%. And that obviously increases your risk of heart diseases and stroke. So instead of focusing on the quantity of food, let's focus on the quality of food. So our food should contain lots of vegetables, fruits, nuts to increase the fiber content, increase the intake of fermented food like curds and yogurts. This will improve your gut health. Increased good quality fat like nuts and seeds. Increase your protein intake, and your carbs should be complex carbs, that is whole grains and preferably millets. Now let's talk about intermittent fasting, another very important way of managing weight. There's a lot of social noise nowadays around it. So what exactly is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is nothing but periods of eating and periods of voluntary fasting which you choose. It does not tell us what to eat. It tells us when to eat. And the intermittent fasting can be of various types. It could be a 16 to 8 ratio or a 5 is to 2 ratio. 16 to 8 means in 24 hours, 16 hours we will be fasting and 8 hours is the window for our eating. And the 5 is to 2 ratio is basically 5 days of eating normal food and 2 days you will be restricting your calorie intake to just 500 to 600 calories, and that too these 2 days will not be consecutive days. So what does basically intermittent fasting do? Intermittent fasting creates a window of calorie deficit period. So during that period, body has to use our stored body fat to get the energy. That's how we lose weight. Weight loss also improves our insulin sensitivity and reduces our risk of other lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, cancers, everything. But please remember, intermittent fasting is not for everybody. If you are a pregnant lady, if you are a lactating mother, if you have some other problems, or if you're on some other medications, then before you start intermittent fasting, please talk to your doctor that whether it is okay for you to do intermittent fasting. And while you're doing intermittent fasting, be careful about what you're eating. See that you're eating a lot of nutrient rich food which contains lots of proteins, vitamins, and minerals so that you do not go into any kind of deficiencies. Okay, so now let's come to another very important way of managing our weight. that is physical activity. We can do cardio or we can do strength training exercises. And when we combine these two, it not only gives us benefits of weight reduction, but also gives us an overall fitness, well-being, and reduced risk of other diseases. You can do strength training exercises by doing yoga, Pilates, band exercises, or lifting weights. And as far as cardio goes, you can do brisk walking, jogging, running, cycling, swimming, dancing, or any kind of sport what you like. So let's see what are the benefits we are getting from these exercises other than weight reduction. And let's also understand how they help us in reducing weight. So one of the very important benefits of strength training is it increases our muscle mass. So when we have more muscle, our BMR increases, we use more energy even when we are not exercising, and that's how we lose weight and we maintain weight loss. Strength training increases our bone density. This helps in prevention of fall and fractures. This also helps in reducing our risk of osteoporosis, especially after menopause. Strength training also improves our balance and reduces our body fat percentage. As we increase our muscle mass and if we are reducing our weight, that means the fat is reducing. Obviously, we are getting a lot more health benefits and healthier by the day. Now, let's understand what benefits we are getting from our cardio workouts. As the name suggests, it obviously improves our cardiovascular health and reduces the risk of heart diseases. Cardio exercises improves our lung capacity. It improves our oxygen utilization and we breathe easy. Many a times we can see even asthmas can be managed only with cardio exercises. Cardio exercises obviously reduce our risk of hypertension, heart diseases, and strokes. It reduces our risk of diabetes and improves our insulin sensitivity. Cardio exercises also improves our endurance. We can sustain longer periods of physical activity. One of the very important factors of cardio exercises is it is a stress buster because when we are exercising, endorphins are released in our brain, which are mood elevator hormones. So after exercise, you will always feel a little better. Because of this, it helps in reducing your stress and anxiety levels. So that is the reason when we combine cardio exercises and strength training, we get a sustained weight loss, which we can sustain over a long period of time. And of course, these exercises improve our overall health too. Now, my discussion about obesity will remain incomplete if I do not talk about the recent drugs that we have for weight management. Are they magic drugs or are they a myth? Let's see. I'm talking about drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro. Now, these drugs have been specifically approved by US FDA mainly for using on overweight type 2 diabetic people. They are usually available in the injectable form and normally we need to take one injection per week. Now, how do these drugs actually work? These drugs mimic our natural hormone of satiety. As these hormone levels increases, it tells our brain that we are full and we should stop eating. These drugs also slow down the digestion process and keeps food for a longer period in our digestive tract. So we stay full for longer periods. Automatically we eat less and automatically we lose weight. This is something similar to what we see in bariatric surgery. But after some time, when you start taking these drugs, you may reach a weight loss plateau. And once you stop taking these medicines, you may also see a regain in your weight. So, yes, you will have to continue taking these drugs if you want to continue your weight loss process. But understand that these drugs need to be taken along with lifestyle changes like dietary changes and physical activity. But these drugs are not all magic.
they come with their fair share of side effects like nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, stomach upset, and sometimes they can lead to some serious complications like dizziness, vision changes, pancreatitis, and even hypoglycemia or low sugar levels. Though these side effects are rare, you need to be properly evaluated by a doctor before you start on these drugs. So, what can you do to avoid the complications? Eat small meals, drink plenty of water, avoid fatty food, and definitely do some amount of physical activity. So, now let us bust some myths about obesity. First myth, skipping meals will help in your weight loss. No, skipping meals will only make you more hungry later and you will overeat. And secondly, skipping meals will lead to reduction in your basal metabolism rate and it will only make weight loss more difficult. So, skipping meals is not the answer. Another important myth is certain foods can help in weight loss. No, weight loss is achieved by taking a calorie deficit meal and doing physical activity. One very important myth is all calories are the same. Actually, not. High density nutrient rich calories from whole grains is much better than empty calories from processed foods and sugary drinks. Another very important myth is eating fat makes you fat. Well, eating healthy fat is very important for your body because fat is necessary for our hormone production and vitamin storage. So, healthy fats can be a part of your balanced diet. Another very important myth is you need to cut down on all carbohydrates to lose weight. Well, the fact is, carbohydrates are important for energy and they can be part of your balanced diet. See that you're eating complex carbohydrates rather than plain sugars. So, focus on whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. One more important myth is crash diets are very good for weight loss. Actually, that is not true. Crash diets are unsustainable and can often lead to weight regain. A slow and steady approach is always better. One very important myth is that everyone can lose weight at the same rate. No, weight loss is based on your age, your gender, and your body composition. Also, at what stage of life you're in. A menopausal woman will obviously find it much more difficult to lose weight compared to a younger woman. So, finally, let's come to the small actionable steps we all can take to start and maintain our weight loss journey. You really don't need to survive only on boiled broccoli. Sustainable changes work the best. So, what are the small steps that you can take? Follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you need to eat a healthy diet with real food, that is, including whole grains, vegetables, fruits, seeds and nuts, proteins, and complex carbohydrates. And 20% of the time, you can have small indulgences. Second, move naturally. Try and walk for 30 minutes at least 5 days a week. If that is not possible, then after every meal, try and walk for 10 minutes. And after dinner, go for a 30-minute walk. Do some strength training exercises every week. Build more muscles, spend more energy, lose more weight. See that you're sleeping well. At least 6 to 7 hours of sleep every day becomes very necessary. So, restrict the use of social media. Whenever you're eating, eat mindfully. What do I mean by that? In your plate, 50% of the plate should be filled with vegetables, fruits, and nuts. 25% of the plate should be filled with proteins. And only 25% of the plate should contain carbohydrates, that too complex carbohydrates like whole grains, millets, etc. Most importantly, focus on non scale victories like better digestion, better mood, better skin, more energy. All these are also equally important achievements. Try keeping a why journal. Write down all the reasons why you want to lose weight. When you get a clearer picture of your reason for losing weight, it will motivate you to continue with your weight loss process. So, finally, here is what I really want you to remember: you are not your weight. You are not your jean size. You're definitely not your before or after picture, which nowadays people post on the social media. You are a powerhouse of potential and you can achieve anything which you want to. So remember, your body has carried you through all your life, through all the struggles, decades of laughing, crying, and healing together. So your body needs a lot of nourishment and love, not punishment. So here's my final thought. Let's shift the narrative from how do I look to how do I feel. Thanks for tuning in. If this episode has sparked something in you, then please share it with your friends and family. And remember, each small step you take today is a big win for your future self.
Your feedback is really valuable to us. Let us know the topics you would be interested to know about. You can follow us on Instagram, and remember, you can also catch this episode and more on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. The links are provided in the description.
Until next time, stay kind to yourself, stay curious, and stay deliciously human. Catch you in my next episode.